Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am Dr. Asiyata. We are here for the 8th lecture of Introduction to Biochemistry, which is on the peptides and proteins as acid base and the. In this lecture, we will discuss about the proteins, peptides, the formation of peptides, function of the peptides, the classification of proteins. We will also discuss their physical and chemical properties as well in this lecture. As we are going to discuss about the peptides and proteins, so first of all, here is a brief introduction of proteins, about their nature and the main biological functions. So proteins are the most complex but the most abundant organic molecule of the living system. They occur in each and every part of the cell and constitute about 50% of the cellular dry weight. As we know that they do most of the work of the cell, proteins form the fundamental basis of the structure and function of the life. Because we are going to discuss about the proteins, so we should know about the history of the proteins. Miller was the first scientist who put the basis of the study of proteins. While he was studying about the substances from the egg and milk, and he thought that these substances can be coagulated on heating, and most probably these substances were the nitrogenous compounds. The term protein is derived from a Greek word proteos, which means first place or the preeminent. Again, Berzelius was the first man who suggested these nitrogenous substances, their name as a protein. These are the group of organic compounds that are at most important to the life according to the Berzelius. And now we know that proteins are the fundamental structural component of the body. So proteins are the nitrogenous macromolecules which are composed of many amino acids. Biomedically, proteins are also very important. They do most of the work of the cell. For example, proteins are the main structural component of cytoskeleton. Actin and tubulin are the examples of structural proteins which polymerize to form a long stiff fiber that make up the cytoskeleton. And this cytoskeleton allows the cell to maintain its size and shape to sustain their life. Another important function of the protein is they act as a biocatalyst. We know these biocatalysts as enzymes. These enzymes accelerate the chemical reaction. Almost all the metabolic processes in the cell need enzymatic catalysis to maintain or sustain the life. Proteins are also very important in the immune system. Hormones are secreted by the endocrine glands. Not all, but most of these hormones are proteinous in their nature. For example, insulin and glucagon are the example of those hormones which are proteinous in their nature. Many structural proteins are contractile proteins. For example, actin and myosin are the proteins that help in the movement of the muscle fiber. Some proteins act as a receptor. So now receptors are the chemical structures which are composed of proteins that receive and transduce signals that may be integrated into the biological systems. In simple words, receptors can receive the information in the form of ligands. Now ligands are the chemical substances. These may be hormones or neurotransmitters. Can pass the information to first bind with the receptor and pass the information towards the cell. That what type of the actions can be taken by the or needed to be taken by the cell to tackle the condition or situation of the living system. Many proteins act as a transport proteins. They carry out the function of the transporting specific substances either across the membrane or inside the body fluids. These can be transporter proteins anionic transporter proteins. For example, they are specific for the cations. Anionic transport proteins, which allows the anions to be transported inside or outside the cell. Many transport proteins may be carrier proteins, which carry the ions or small molecules or the macromolecules across the membrane or in the body fluids. Several proteins serve as a storage proteins. They bind with the specific substances and store them. For example, iron is stored as ferritin, so ferritin is a storage protein. Few proteins are constituent of respiratory pigment. For example, hemoglobin and myoglobin. So these respiratory pigments increases the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. So hemoglobin is present in the red blood cells, while myoglobin is predominantly present in the muscles, and some occur in the electron transport chain. For example, cytochromes. These are present in the inner mitochondrial membrane and are important in the energy metabolism. Under certain conditions, protein can also be catabolized to supply the energy. For example, 1 gram of protein can release the 4 kilocalories of the energy. Many proteins, by means of exerting osmotic pressure, help in the maintenance of electrolyte and water balance in the body. For example, plasma proteins are responsible for the maintenance of water balance and of the electrolyte. Proteins are made up of amino acids. There are around 300 amino acids which are present in the nature, but only 20 amino acids are the more common, or in other words, are the standard amino acids which form the structure of almost all the proteins. These 20 amino acids are linked together through a covalent linkage, also known as peptide bond or peptide linkage, which is formed between the amino acids, and these amino acids form the peptides and then the proteins. Chain containing less than 50 amino acids are called peptides, while those containing the greater than 50 amino acids are called proteins. So peptides are the polymers of amino acids. These amino acids are held together in a protein by a covalent peptide bond or the linkages. These bonds are rather strong and serve as a cementing material between the individual amino acids, which are considered as the building blocks of the proteins. So their structure and function depends upon the nature of amino acids which are present in the chain, the sequence of amino acids, and the special relationship of the amino acids. Many peptides are formed from the breakdown of proteins, and this breakdown may either by the hydrolysis, enzymatic hydrolysis, or the acid-base hydrolysis. Each amino acid unit in the peptide is called as a residue. As we know the structure of amino acids, it contains two functional groups at a time. The one is alpha carboxyl group and the other is alpha amino group. The peptide bond is formed between these two functional groups but from the different amino acids. For example, the alpha carboxyl group of one amino acids forms a covalent peptide bond with the alpha amino group of another amino acid by the removal of a molecule of water, and the resultant product will be a dipeptide in which two amino acids are linked together by one peptide bond, and this dipeptide is depicted in the figure below. So peptides are relatively small polymers of up to 2 to 10 amino acid units. If the two amino acids were involved, then the product will be a dipeptide. If another amino acid will be added in a dipeptide, it will be a tripeptide. By the addition of another amino acid in a tripeptide, it will be a tetrapeptide, and so forth. It will proceed up to the decapeptide of 10 units of amino acids. So oligopeptide is a term which is used for a few amino acids. Polypeptides are the big peptides, and up to or more than 50 amino acids are present in one polypeptide chain. So we know that poly means many. So polypeptide is a term which is used for the many amino acids. As we have already discussed that peptide bond is formed between the alpha carboxyl group of one amino acid and the amino group of the second amino acid. So the peptide also have two ends, and these are not the same. The one end contains a free amino group, while the other end also contain a carboxyl group, which is the characteristic of amino acids. So the free end which contain amino group is also known as amino terminal or amino terminal end, while the other end which contain a free carboxyl end also known as carboxyl terminal or carboxyl terminal end. Conventionally, the peptide chain are written with the free amino end at the left and the free carboxyl group end at the right. The amino acid sequence is read from the N terminal end to the C terminal end. Identically, the protein biosynthesis also starts from the N terminal of amino acid. The amino acids in a peptide or a protein are represented by the 3-letter or 1-letter abbreviation. This is a chemical shorthand to write a protein. In case of naming of peptides, the amino acid suffix "ene", "ine", for example, present in glycine, and tryptophan, 8-glutamate, are changed to YL with the exception of C-terminal amino acid. Thus, the tripeptide composed of an N-terminal glutamate, a cysteine, and the C-terminal glycine is also called as glutamyl cysteine glycine. In the figure below, the naming and representation of a tripeptide are shown. Here is another example of a peptide, which is a pentapeptide of N-terminal serine, glycine, tryptophan, alanine, and the C-terminal with the leucine. So we can name it as seryl, glycyl, tyrosyl, alanyl, leucine. So the structure is also shown here below. Here are some examples of the peptides. The first one is the example of a dipeptide. As we know that dipeptide is a product of two amino acids with one joined by one peptide bond. Now the example of a dipeptide is aspartame, which acts as a sweetening agent being used in replacement of the sugarcane. It is composed of aspartic acid and a phenylalanine. Tripeptide, when an amino acid is added or linked with the dipeptide, the resultant product will be the tripeptide. So 3 amino acids are linked by 2 peptide bonds. And the example of a tripeptide is glutathione, which is also named as GSH. Glutathione is formed from 3 amino acids: glutamic acid, cysteine, and glycine. The main function of the glutathione is to cater or hydrolyze the hazardous effect of hydrogen peroxide by neutralizing it. So thus it helps in the absorption of amino acids, protects against hemolysis of RBC by breaking H2O2, which causes the cell damage. So polypeptides as we know that these are the big peptides of more than 50 amino acids, and the examples of the polypeptide are insulin, which is a polypeptide hormone, and glucagon, which is also a polypeptide hormone. Here is another example of a peptide, which is a tetrapeptide. So this tetrapeptide is of alanine from the N-terminal, glutamate, glycine, and the lysine with the C-terminal. So we can write it as alanyl, glutamyl, glycyl, lysine. Peptides are found throughout every cell and tissues in the body and are an integral part of most biological processes. The maintenance of appropriate concentration and activity level of peptides is necessary to maintain the health. As we know that hormones are the biological messengers, so many peptides are the hormones and the pheromones. For example, insulin, oxytocin, and sex peptides are the peptide hormones. They can also act as a neuropeptides, for example, substance P. Some antibiotics are also as peptides. So polymyxin B, becytacin, these are the antibiotics which are basically the peptides. They also have a role in the protection of the biological systems. For example, amanitin, which is present in the mushrooms, and this is used for their protection. Conotoxin for the cone snails, and chlorotoxin, which is present in the scorpions. All these chemicals are the peptides in nature and used for the protection by their respective living system. So many peptides are biologically important. For example, many enzymes, glutathione, which we already discussed that it is a GSH, and the main function of the glutathione is to hydrolyze the hazardous or damaging effect of hydrogen peroxide by neutralizing it. Thyrotropin releasing hormone, which is another important peptide. And secreted by the hypothalamus. TRH stimulates the pituitary gland to release the thyrotropic hormones. The oxytocin, another hormone which is secreted by the posterior pituitary gland and contain 9 amino acids. Oxytocin causes contraction of the uterus. Vasopressin, another hormone which is also a non-peptide produced by the posterior pituitary gland, and it stimulates kidney to retain the water and thus increases the blood pressure. Angiotensins. Angiotensin 1 is a decapeptide which is converted to the angiotensin 2, which is the 8 amino acid unit are present in this. The angiotensin 2 has more hypertensive effect. It also stimulates the release of aldosterone, which is also a hormone from the adrenal gland. Bradykinin, they are the nona and decapeptides respectively, and both of them act as a powerful vasodilators. So they are produced from the plasma protein by snake venom enzymes, or the methionine and kephalin. Methionine and kephalin. It is a pentapeptide which is found in the brain and has opiate-like functions. It inhibits the sense of pain. As we know that proteins are the most abundant yet most complex biomolecules of the life. They are the heteropolymers of amino acids. So proteins generally contain more than 50 to several hundred amino acid units in their. So the main elemental composition of the proteins is they contain around 50 to 55% carbon, 6 to 7.3% of hydrogen, 19 to 24% of oxygen, 13 to 19% of the nitrogen, sulfur up to 0 to 4%. They also contain phosphorus, iron, copper, iodine, magnesium, manganese, and zinc uh, in their structure. So the elemental composition of protein is they contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, and some other elements, but in a trace amount in their structure. So the polypeptides vary greatly in their size and number. Proteins generally contain more than 50 to several hundreds of their amino acid units in their structure. For example, cytochrome C, which contain 104 amino acid residues in their structure with one polypeptide chain. Ribonuclease A contains 124 amino acid residues and they have a one polypeptide chain. Lysozymes, which is present in chicken egg white, contains 129 amino acids and it also exists in a single polypeptide chain. Myoglobin with the 150 amino acid residues and the single amino acid single polypeptide chain. Chymotrypsin from the bovine pancreas, it contains 241 amino acid residues but with the three polypeptide chains in their structure are present. So hemoglobin contains the 574 amino acid residues. It exists in a 4 polypeptide chains in their structure. Serum albumin contains the 609 amino acid residues in their structure and have a single polypeptide chain. Hexokinases contain 972 amino acid residues and these 972 amino acid residues exist in 2 polypeptide chains. Glutamine synthetase contains 5628 amino acids and have 12 polypeptide chains in their structure. Titin, another important polypeptide, it contains 26,926 amino acid residues in their structure in a single polypeptide chain. So proteins are polypeptide sizes and number varies greatly in the protein. When talking about the classification of proteins, these can be classified on the basis of their functions. So the first one is functional classification of the proteins. The second is classification of the proteins on the basis of their chemical natures. They can also be classified on the basis of their biological value. And the fourth type of classification is on the basis of their structural organization. In case of functional classification of proteins, these proteins can be classified into two groups. The first one is dynamic function. The second one is static functions. In dynamic functions, these proteins may have act as an enzymes. They may be regulatory proteins or they may be transporter or carrier proteins. So in enzyme in catalysis, it's a very important function of proteins is to serve as a biological catalyst. As we know that enzymes are the biological catalysts which are used to accelerate the rate of reaction. So almost all the metabolic processes needs enzyme catalysis to sustain the life. Except for some ribozymes, all the enzymes are proteinous in their nature. The biochemical reaction can occur at a very significant rate only in the presence of these enzymes. For example, enolase, it's a enzymes present in a glycolytic pathway. DNA polymerase is also an enzyme and which is present in the DNA replication. The second type of dynamic function of protein, they act as a regulatory proteins or the receptors or signal transducers. Chemically, all the receptors are proteinous in their nature. For example, insulin and the other hormones, for example, LDL receptors, transferrin receptors, TCL receptors, all these receptors are the proteinous in their nature. The third dynamic function is the transportation. Proteins may act as a carrier proteins and used to transport the ions, smaller molecules or the macromolecules across the membrane or within the body fluids. For example, hemoglobin, which is a transport protein for the oxygen. Many proteins are the membrane channels and associated with the proteins. Chemically, these channels are made up of proteins. For example, chloride channels, which are specific for chlorine transportation. Calcium channels, these are specific for calcium. Sodium-potassium channel, these channels are responsible for the transportation of sodium and potassium at the same time across the membrane. And lactose permease, which transport the lactose across the cell membrane. Except these, transferrins, lipoproteins, transcobalamines, thyroxine binding globulins, retinol binding proteins, albumin proteins, corticosteroid binding proteins, all these are the transport proteins, but these are for the specific substances. For example, transferrin is the storage protein for the iron. Lipoproteins, these are made up of lipid and proteins. Transcobalamine, thyroxine binding globulins, corticosteroid binding proteins, retinol binding proteins, albumins, all these are the specific for their specific transportation means. The second important category of proteins on the basis of their static function. The first one, these may be the structural proteins, for example, collagen, which is present in the connective tissues, keratin, which forms the hair, nails, feathers and horns. These are important in the movement. For example, they may be contractile proteins, which are responsible for the movement of muscle fiber. Actin and myosin are the filaments, which are the contractile proteins and are responsible or help in the movement of the muscles. These may be storage proteins, for example, ferritin, which is the storage protein for iron, and hemosiderin, which is also used to store the iron. Transcobalamine 1, it stores the vitamin B12. Another important static function of protein is in the defense system. So these proteins are responsible to protect from the infection and other toxic substances. For example, antibodies are responsible. These are the first line defense of the body. The second type of classification of protein is on the basis of their chemical nature. So these proteins can be classified in the simple proteins, conjugated proteins, or the derived proteins. If we are talking about the simple proteins, these are further categorized into globular proteins or scleroproteins. And the derived proteins can be categorized into two other classes. The first one is primary derived proteins and the second is secondary derived proteins. In case of simple proteins, this type of proteins are made up of only from amino acids, residues and no other bound material. They may be further classified on the basis of their solubility. For example, the first category of simple sugar is the globular proteins. These are the spherical or oval in shape, soluble in water or other solvents and digestible. The first globular protein is albumin, which is soluble in water and dilute salt solutions and coagulate with the heat For example, serum albumin, oval albumin, lactalbumin. Uh, the second is globulin. It's soluble in neutral and dilute salt solutions. The examples of the globulin are the serum globulins and vitellin, which is present in the egg yolk. Glutelins, these are soluble in dilute acids and alkalis and mostly found in the plants. For example, glutenin is present in wheat and orexinin is present in the rice. Prolamins, these are soluble in 70% alcohol and the examples are gladins, which is present in wheat, zein is present in the maize. Histones, these are strongly basic proteins and soluble in the water or the dilute acids but insoluble in the dilute ammonium hydroxide, and the example is thymus histones. The next is globins. These are generally considered along with the histones. However, globins are not basic proteins and these are not precipitated by the ammonium hydroxide. Protamines, they are strongly basic, similar to histones, but smaller in their size and soluble in the ammonium hydroxide. Protamines are also found associated with nucleic acids. For example, sperm proteins. Lectins are carbohydrates binding proteins, and these are involved in the interaction between cell and protein. So they help to maintain the tissue and organ structure. For example, concanavalin, agglutinin. These are the examples of lectin. The second important category of the simple proteins is fibrous proteins or the scleroproteins. So these are the fiber-like in shape and insoluble in the water but resistant to digestion. Albuminides or the scleroproteins are predominant group of the fibrous proteins. Collagen are the example of fibrous protein. These are the connective tissue proteins. These are on boiling with water or dilute acid yield gelatin, which is soluble and digestible. Elastin is another fibrous protein and are found in the elastic tissues, for example tendons and arteries. Keratins, these are present in exoskeleton structure, for example hair, nail and horns. The next category is the conjugated proteins. These proteins can be formed by the combination of a protein and a non-protein cofactor or the group, for example carbohydrate, nucleic acid, lipids or phosphoric acids or phosphate group, etc. The first one is nucleoproteins. When the proteins get combined with the nucleic acids, they are called as nucleoproteins. For example, they can get combined with the DNA or the RNA, and the examples of the nucleoproteins are nucleohistones and nucleoprotamines. The second is glycoproteins. When the proteins get conjugated with the carbohydrates, they are called as glycoproteins. If the concentration of the carbohydrate is less than 4% of the proteins, they are called as glycoproteins. But if this concentration is more than 4%, they are named as mucoproteins. For example, mucin and ovomucin egg white are the glycoproteins. Lipoproteins are the conjugated product of lipids and the proteins, and the example is serum lipoproteins. The next important conjugated protein class is phosphoproteins. In this type of category, proteins get combined with the phosphate groups or the phosphoric acid. These are called phosphoproteins. For example, casein, which is from the milk, is a phosphoprotein. Vitellin from the egg yolk is also a phosphoproteins. Chromoproteins. When the proteins get conjugated with the colored group, they are called chromoproteins, and the examples of chromoprotein is hemoglobin and the cytochrome. Next is metalloproteins. These proteins contain metal ions such as iron, cobalt, zinc, copper, magnesium, etc. For example, ceruloplasmin and carbonic anhydrase, these are the metalloproteins. Some major classes of the conjugated proteins are represented here in this table. For example, lipoproteins. In this, the prosthetic group is lipid, means proteins get combined with the lipids, and the example of lipoprotein is beta 1 lipoprotein of the blood. Glycoproteins, and the prosthetic group is carbohydrate, and the example is immunoglobulin G. Phosphoproteins, prosthetic group is phosphate group, and the example is casein of milk. Hemoproteins, in which the prosthetic group is heme, iron, porphyrins, and the example is hemoglobin. Flavoproteins, and the prosthetic group for flavoprotein is flavonucleotides. For example, succinate dehydrogenase, which is an enzyme. Metalloproteins, prosthetic group may be iron, zinc, calcium, molybdenum, and copper. In case of iron, the example is ferritin, zinc, alcohol dehydrogenase, calcium, calmodulin, molybdenum. It's a dinitrogenases. The copper, plastocyanins are the example of. The third important category of this classification of protein is derived proteins. The intermediate degradation product of protein hydrolysis are called the derived proteins. These are further categorized into two groups. The first one is primary derived proteins. The second is secondary derived proteins. In case of primary derived proteins, these are the denatured or coagulated or first hydrolyzed product of the protein. Coagulate proteins, these are the denatured proteins which are produced by the agents such as heat, acid, alkalis. For example, cooked proteins, coagulated albumins. When the egg white is get boiled and form a coagulated albumin. Proteins, these are the earliest product of the protein hydrolysis by the enzyme. For example, dilute acids or the alkalis, etc. So, which is insoluble in the water. For example, fibrin formed from the fibrinogen. Metalloproteins, these are the second stage products of the protein hydrolysis obtained by the treatment with slightly strong acids and alkalis. For example, acid and alkali metalloproteins or metaproteins. The second category of the derived proteins is secondary derived proteins. So these are the progressive hydrolytic products or intermediates of the protein hydrolysis. So this includes proteases, peptones, polypeptides, and peptides. The third important classification of the protein is on the basis of their biological value of the proteins. Protein is one of the important component of the diet. It is required to maintain the growth and healthy function of the body. So protein give amino acid on hydrolysis during digestion, and these amino acids are further absorbed in the blood. As we know that amino acids are the building blocks of the protein required for the cell to synthesize further proteins like structural proteins or functional proteins such as enzymes. So proteins are the structural component of the protoplasm and the cell and the tissues. As we already have discussed that proteins are present in each and every part of the. So proteins can be classified on the basis of their nutritional value into complete proteins, partially incomplete proteins, and incomplete proteins. So this classification is based on the presence of the essential amino acids. So the concept of essential amino acid is has been discussed in the previous lecture. So rapidly, the essential amino acids are those amino acids which cannot be synthesized by the body and must be taken from the diet to meet the needs of the body. So complete proteins are those proteins that contain all the essential amino acids in required quantities. These are called complete proteins. For example, milk and egg proteins. Partially incomplete proteins. These are partially lacking one or more essential amino acids and hence can promote the moderate growth. For example, wheat is the wheat protein is a partially incomplete protein because it is limited with the lysine, and rice protein is limited with the lysine and threonine. In case of incomplete proteins, these cannot contain all the essential amino acids and are called incomplete proteins. For example, maize and gelatin are the incomplete proteins due to the absence of all essential amino acids in their structure. Under certain conditions, the dietary proteins or the body proteins are diverted for the production of energy. This may be due to the inadequate supply of carbohydrate and fats or because of the protein intake itself is very high. A low intake of protein results in the deficiency symptoms such as conditions are developed by maybe due to the low dietary intake or the malfunctioning of the body, such as malabsorption and the non-conversion. Here are some examples of the protein sources and their bioavailability index. The fourth type of classification of protein is on the basis of their structural organization. As we know that proteins perform a variety of functions, and these functions are closely related to the structure of proteins. Fundamentally, all the proteins are made up of amino acids which are linked to one another by a covalent linkage or the peptide linkage, or in other words by the peptide bonds. A complex three-dimensional structure is formed by the coiling and folding of the peptide chains or the union of several peptide chains with one another. The three-dimensional structure is also known as conformation of the proteins. The conformation is a unique to each protein. The biological function of the proteins depends upon its conformation. Any change in the conformation may lead to lose the function of that specific proteins. The conformation also depends upon the sequence of the amino acids. We are not going to discuss the structure of proteins in detail, but briefly, the structure of proteins involves two types of forces. The first one, they have strong bonds or strong forces, which includes the peptide and disulfide bonds, and the second is non-covalent or weak forces, which are though weaker but are useful for the stability of the protein structure. The second important force which is involved in the protein structure is non-covalent or the weak forces. These are the weak forces or non-covalent bonds, but they contribute significantly to stability of the protein structure. The main non-covalent bond in the proteins are hydrogen bonds, electrostatic bonds, hydrophobic bonds. Again, we are not going to discuss their details because it will be discussed in the further lectures. Briefly, the structure of the protein can be considered or to have four levels of the organization. The first one, primary, which is the simplest structure of the protein. It's a linear structure. The second one is the secondary structure, which is a little bit complex from the primary structure. Again, the tertiary structure, more complex than the secondary. And the final is quaternary structure. So there are the four levels of the structural organization of the proteins. So quaternary structure is present in many but not, while the primary, secondary and tertiary structures are present almost in all the proteins. And here's the brief detail of structure of proteins. Proteins have different level of organization, which we already discussed, that they may be primary proteins, linear sequence of amino acids forming the backbone of the proteins. Peptide linkage is present in the primary linear structure of proteins. Secondary structure, the special arrangement of the protein by twisting of the polypeptide chain is present in secondary structure. In the tertiary structure, the three-dimensional structure of the functional. In case of quaternary structure, some of the proteins are composed of two or more polypeptide chains, referred to as subunits. The special arrangement of these subunits is known as quaternary structure. Again, here's the figure which describes the levels of structure in the proteins. The primary linear structure, the twisting of the linear structure into the secondary structure. More complex is the tertiary structure, and the most complex among these levels is the quaternary structure of the proteins. Now we are going to discuss about the properties of proteins. So the first one is their solubility. Proteins form the colloidal solution instead of true solutions in the water, and this property is due to the huge size of the protein molecules. The second is molecular weights. The protein vary in their molecular weights, which depends on the number of amino acid residues which are present in their structure. Majority of the proteins or the polypeptides may be composed of 40 to 4000 amino acids, with a molecular weight ranging from 4000 to 440,000. There is a wide variation in the protein shape. They may be globular, for example, in case of insulin. They may be oval, and the example is albumin. They may be fibrous or elongated, for example, fibrinogen. So they have a variety in their shapes. The viscosity of the protein solution. The viscosity of the protein solution varies widely with the kind of the protein and its concentration in the solution. The viscosity is closely related to the molecular shape. Long molecule fibrous proteins being more viscous than the globular proteins. So thus fibrinogen can form a more viscous solution than the albumin. So viscosity varies widely with the kind of protein and its concentration in the solution. The isoelectric as a property of amino acids has been described in previous lecture. The nature of the amino acids, particularly their ionizable groups, determines the isoelectric pH of the proteins. For example, the acidic amino acids, aspartate and glutamate, and the basic amino acids, histidine, lysine, and arginine, strongly influence the isoelectric pH. At isoelectric pH, the proteins exist as a zwitter or the dipolar ions. They are electrically neutral because they do not migrate in the electric field. With the minimum solubility, maximum precipitability, and the least buffering capacity, the isoelectric pH for some proteins are given. For example, pepsin have 1.1 pi, casein 4.6, human albumin 4.7, ureases 5, hemoglobin 6.7, and lysozymes have 11 pH, which is its isoelectric pH. The next is acidic and basic proteins. The proteins with the ratio of lysine and arginine or the glutamine and aspartate is greater than 1, they are referred to as basic proteins. For acidic, the ratio is less than 1. So, when the protein get dissolved in a water solution, their polar groups, which are their amino and carboxyl group, became hydrated in the presence of water. When some other moieties, for example, some electrolytes, alcohol or sugar are added to this protein solution, there is a competition of water between the protein and these moieties exist. As a result, these moieties get swell up and dehydrate the proteins, which ultimately leads to the precipitation of these proteins in the form of solution. Heat coagulation. Several proteins get coagulate while they are heating and form an insoluble coagulum. So coagulation is a maximum at their isoelectric pH of the proteins. During coagulation, proteins undergo a change that is called a denaturation process. So denaturation or denatured proteins are soluble in extreme pH and maximum precipitation occurs at the isoelectric pH of the protein. Being a property of amino acids, this amphoteric nature of the proteins uh, was also discussed in the amino acid section in the previous lecture. But in any protein molecules, there are amino acids which carry carboxyl and amino groups in their side chains. These groups can undergo ionization in the solution, producing both anion and cations. In addition to these side chains of the polar amino acids, N-terminal of amino group and the C-terminal of carboxyl group may also ionize. So, depending on the pH, few groups act as proton donor while few as the proton acceptors. Therefore, proteins are ampholytes and act as both acids and bases. So, proteins are the ampholytes. At a specific pH called the isoelectric pH, a protein exists as a dipolar ion or the zwitterion or hybrid ion. So, carrying equal number of positive and negative charges on its ionizable groups, so the net charge on the protein molecule at its isoelectric pH is 0. On the acidic side of its isoelectric pH, a protein exists as a cation by accepting a proton and migrate towards anode in an electric field. While in case of alkaline solution, on the alkaline side of its isoelectric pH, a protein exists as an anion by donating a proton and migrate toward the cathode. Next important property of protein is its precipitability. The precipitation of protein is protein exists in a colloidal solution due to the hydration of their polar groups, amino and carboxyl group or the hydroxyl group. Proteins can be precipitated by dehydration or neutralization of the protein groups. Isoelectric pH. For example, this property has been discussed already. Proteins are least soluble at their isoelectric pH. Some of these proteins are precipitated immediately when adjusted to their isoelectric pH. For example, casein, which form a flocculant precipitation at pH 4.6, which is its isoelectric pH, and redissolved in very highly acidic or alkaline solutions. When the milk is curdled, the casein form the white curd because lactic acid produced by the fermentation process lowers the pH to its isoelectric point of the casein. When a neutral salt, for example ammonium sulfate or the sodium sulfate, is added to a protein solution, the shell of the hydrogen from the protein is removed and it gets precipitated. This process is called as salting out. Higher the molecular weight of the protein, the salt for the precipitation required in lesser quantity. The globins are precipitated by half saturation of the ammonium sulfate, but albumin will need full saturation for the salting out process. The third type of precipitation, which is the precipitation by the organic solvents. So organic solvents, for example alcohol, are good protein precipitating agents. They dehydrate the protein molecule by removing the water envelope and cause precipitation. Another important type of precipitation of protein by salts of heavy metals. Heavy metal ions, for example lead, mercury, iron, zinc, cadmium can cause the precipitation of proteins. These metals being positively charged when added to the protein solution, which is a negatively charged in alkaline medium, get precipitated and the precipitate formation occur. Another type of precipitation of protein is by anionic or alkaloid reagents. Proteins can be precipitated by trichloroacetic acid, sulfocyclic acid, phosphotungstic acid, picric acid, tannic acid, or phosphomolebidic acids. By the addition of these acids, the protein exists as cations are precipitated by the anionic form of acid to produce protein sulfosalicylate, protein tungstate, protein picrate, etc. and get precipitated. The phenomena of disorganization of native protein structure is known as denaturation. Denaturation results in the loss of secondary, tertiary and quaternary structure of proteins. This involves a change in the physical, chemical and biological properties of the protein molecules. But one thing should be in the consideration that primary structure of the protein molecule get intact due to the non-effectiveness of the denaturation phenomena on the peptide bonds. So peptide bonds remains not affected. So denaturing agents, these may be physical agents or the chemical agents. So physical agents get included in the are the heat, violent shaking, X-rays or UV radiation. These physical agents can cause the denaturation of the proteins. Denaturation process can also be occurred by some chemical agents, for example acids, alkalis, organic solvents, for example ether and alcohol, salts of the heavy metal, lead and mercury, urea and salicylate are the chemical agents which can be the agents for the denaturation process. Now the characteristics of the denaturation. The native helical structure of the protein is lost during the denaturation process. The primary structure of the protein with peptide linkage remains intact. Peptide bonds are not hydrolyzed. The next is protein lost its biological activity. Denatured proteins become insoluble in the solvent in which it was originally soluble. The viscosity of the denatured protein increases while its surface. Denaturation is associated with increase in the ionizable and the sulfhydryl group of the proteins. This is due to the loss of hydrogen and disulfide bonds. Denatured proteins is very easily digestible. This is due to the increased exposure of the peptide bonds to enzymes. Denaturation is an irreversible process. For example, omelette can be prepared from an egg, but the reversal of it is not possible. Careful denaturation is sometimes reversible, and this process is known as renaturation. For example, hemoglobin undergoes denaturation in the presence of salicyclate, but by the removal of salicyclate, hemoglobin is renatured. So, denatured protein cannot be crystallized. Coagulation is a process which refers to a semi-solid viscous precipitate of the proteins, and this is irreversible denaturation results in coagulation. Coagulation is optimum and required lowest temperature at isoelectric pH, for example, albumin and globulins. Heat coagulation test is commonly used to detect the presence of albumin in the urine. Another important process is flocculation or flocculation. It is a process of protein precipitation at isoelectric pH. The precipitate is referred to as flocculum. The flocculum is a reversible process. On the application of heat, flocculum can be converted into an irreversible mass or coagulum. Dear students, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully this lecture will be helpful for you. You can also consult these topics from these reference books. Thank you so much. Do well and stay safe. Allah Hafiz.